My first near death experience happened when I was 13. I went to the Y to swim. My parents wanted us to learn how to swim, and so we were taking lessons. And there were three sections in the pool: the baby section, the middle section, and then there was the older kids section, which was the 10-foot section. I was in the 10-foot section where the older kids were. The lifeguard wanted us to dive headfirst into the water, and I had a really um, bad feeling about it. Real deep foreboding. I just could not do it. I watched all the other kids go in, and they came out fine. Um, but it was just something that I just didn't feel right about doing. And I told him, and he said, "Well, you're either going to do this dive or I'm going to throw you in." And so he picked me up around my waist and he threw me in the water. And when he did that, I panicked and I took in a bunch of water. And when I did, it time seemed to stop or slowed down. Um, it seemed like I was in the water forever, struggling to breathe. And then I sunk to the bottom of the pool and I was laying on the bottom of the pool. And at that point, my spirit left my body and was just hovering over top of me. And I could see the water rippling on top of the pool. I could see my mother on the opposite end of the pool where the babies were. Um, the adults, the parents, they sat up in a balcony above the pool. And I could see my mom hanging over the banister, and she was just screaming, and the horrified look on her face. I could see it. I could hear all of it. Um, the lifeguard that was taking care of the little babies in the 3-foot section of the pool, I heard her yell the man's name, and she said, "Go in and get her." And then my vision swung around and was looking at him, and he couldn't move. His eyes were as big as saucers. He was frozen. He just couldn't move. And so here I am laying on the bottom of 10 feet of water, and I could hear everybody screaming and talking, and I could hear what they were saying. And the children were crying and screaming. And then I saw this beautiful white light. It was brilliant, and yet it didn't hurt my eyes. It was soft at the same time. It, um, at first, it was real small, like a light bulb shape. In fact, I thought to myself, what is a light bulb doing in a pool? That's not very safe. But then the light kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I could feel this warmth and comfort and peace that was coming out of this light, this brilliant, beautiful light. And I wasn't cold. And I always thought that people who drowned would be cold. And I wasn't cold. I was comfortable and I felt cocooned and I felt safe. And I didn't hurt anywhere. I wasn't afraid. Um, I felt loved and protected, actually. And that light kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm not sure if I was going up to it or it was coming down to me, but it was just inches from my face. And then I heard what sounded like a metal door slamming, and it echoed. And that was the point that the man who was in uh, the middle section with the middle-aged kids, they were he had jumped in and he was pulling me out of the water and doing CPR and um, helping me to breathe. And I realized that that slamming door, that metal echoing sound, was my spirit going slamming back into my body when he was doing the CPR. So when he got on the concrete on the side of the pool, and he was continuing to do CPR. And when I woke up, I saw my mom, and there was all these people standing around me, and I was able to see their legs, and I see the children. And that was the first one. I did not know at that time. I was such a young little girl that I did not know that there was such a name for that. I didn't know there anything about NDEs or out of body experiences, or I never even thought about death or dying, or I didn't know what that light was. Um, I knew it was good, and I knew I wanted to go with that light. That's where I really wanted to be. Um, but my mother, she was so frightened by the whole situation that we never really talked about it. So I couldn't ask her questions. So I grew up not knowing what that light was until I had my second near-death experience. And at that point, I was 43. And what happened with that one, I was sitting on the back steps of my house. We had a small overhang of the roof that covered the concrete steps where I was sitting. And it had started to rain, and I was talking on a cordless phone. I knew a corded phone would be dangerous, but I didn't think that one that didn't have a cord would be a problem. So I just continued talking. And then I heard a rumble of thunder in the distance, or what sounded like in the distance. And then all of a sudden, I hear this loud crack, and I see a lightning bolt coming out of the sky, and it hit my right arm. And when it hit my right arm, it traveled through my body, leaving black char marks on the concrete steps where I was sitting. And it went underneath the house, and it blew. We had a transformer in front of our house, so it blew that transformer. I mean, just blew it up. And when that lightning bolt hit my arm, it was like I felt a searing, burning, agonizing pain, and it lasted for like a minute. And then all of a sudden, I come right up out of my body, like peeling a banana, and I just come right up out of myself. And once my spirit came out of my body, I didn't feel any pain. There was no pain at all. And actually, I felt pretty good. But I did not know at that point that had died. I mean, I could see my body laying there next to the stairs, but I couldn't it happened so fast that I couldn't process in my brain that I was dead, and that's why I felt so wonderful. And so I looked at this individual, this person that was me, but I felt very detached from my physical body. And I went up the concrete stairs and through the door and into the kitchen. And I'm looking around and everything has a burnt gold look to it. Mm. And I couldn't understand why everything looked the way it did. And I looked at the curtains that were above the sink in the kitchen. Uh, and I realized that they were not my curtains. I didn't know whose they were. And then I went into the dining room and I looked at the furniture in the dining room and I realized that that stuff wasn't mine. And so I'm walking around my house. It is my house. I know how to get around in it. The rooms are the same, and I know what the rooms are. But all of the furniture belonged to somebody else. It wasn't my furniture. So I go into the living room and I hear what sounds like an old fashioned radio playing some kind of program um, on this old radio. It's like something you would hear back in the days of the Waltons. And so I'm hearing this radio sound and I'm wondering, where is that radio? I knew we didn't have a radio in the house. And I hadn't, never heard a program like that. And I'm thinking, where is that coming from? So I'm looking further through the house. I go into the parlor. I go to the foot of the stairs. I'm in the hallway. I'm looking for this radio. I can't find it anywhere. There's no electricity. The transformer, the power had been blown. And so nothing was making sense. And I started to panic, is what I did. I really got scared and I started to panic. And the moment I started to really, really get upset, there was this huge, loving, formless presence that appeared. And when I say huge, I'm saying humongous, huge, bigger than my house, huge. And it was like so much love poured out of this presence. And I knew this presence was God. And I could, every cell in my body just came alive with that love, the total and complete unconditional love that I have never felt in my life. Nothing like that. And I was just filled to overflowing with this love. And it was, I felt I wasn't scared anymore. I felt calm and peace and just overwhelmed with that love. And it was like he had taken his arm and just wrapped it around me. And I kind of felt like I was wrapped or cocooned in a blanket. That's how I felt. And but it was like he had taken his arm, put it around me, and then we started moving. We moved very quickly. We moved laterally. We did not go up. We did not go down. We went sideways. And we were moving at very great speed through these pink and gold clouds. And I had never seen clouds like that. They were just magnificent. They were just various shades of beautiful pink, and it had like liquid gold running through the clouds, around the clouds. And they were just magnificent. And once we got through the clouds, at the end of the clouds was this gorgeous garden. It was the most magnificent garden I've ever seen. And there were beautiful trees and the grass. I could feel the grass on my feet. It was cool and soft. I heard birds singing. There were flowers, beautiful flowers of every color, and my senses were so heightened. My awareness was um, so alive. You know, m- everything that I was looking at seemed more real than what you see here. The colors were so rich and vibrant. The pinks were pinker, the reds were redder. The um the music, I heard music. Um there was it was like a vibrational sound. Every color have different vibration, like the rainbow. All the different colors of the rainbow. Each color had a different vibrational sound. And the grass had a vibration. The trees had a vibration. The leaves on the trees had a different vibrational sound. The birds that were singing, they had a vibration. There was a stream I saw, and there were rocks in the stream, and the water was just rolling over the rocks. And in the light, the the water looked like there were a million diamonds in the water. And so I noticed that the rocks had a different sound and the water had a different sound. Um, and so when you put all of those sounds together, all those different vibrational sounds, and you put them all together, it's the sounded like the most magnificent orchestra or choir, and everything and everyone was singing praises to God. And when I say orchestra, I'm talking big music, lots of different pieces coming together to create this masterpiece. Different, um, like stringed instruments, harps and cellos and violins and things like that. And then you had your drums, which would have been the sound of the rocks or the trunks of the trees, tinkling bells. It, that's what the leaves sounded like, tinkling bells, and as they kind of wave in a breeze. The grass, each blade has its own sound, and it was just the most beautiful thing I have ever heard in my life, and it was just all of heaven was praising God. Um, there were two young men who walked forward to greet me. And at first, I thought they were angels because they were glowy. They had physical bodies. I had a physical body. Everybody, there were a lot of people. I saw people. Everyone had physical bodies, or what appeared to be physical bodies. But these two young men came forward and they were wearing a soft linen, some kind of, it looked like an expensive linen, the material that the clothing was made from. Their shirts were open. They were wearing lounge pants and they were barefooted. They looked like they had been on the beach all day. They had that sun-kissed glow. Um, their hair was longer and curly, but it had my color running through their hair. And when they smiled, I recognized who they were. And they were my two baby brothers who had died as babies. But here they were, fully grown men, and they looked exactly like my dad. When he smiled, they were just identical to my dad. And I kept telling them, "Oh my gosh, Dad would be so proud of you." They were so beautiful. And so we had this wonderful family reunion. And it was, I knew them, they knew me. This was an amazing experience. And I'm trying to sprinkle thunder on this chicken. Well, somebody's going to get a real. Can you hold 1 second, please?
Yeah, you want to get a little sip of something too? You want to get a tea?
Yeah, my mouth is really dry.
Yeah.
Gary, she can pick you up on that.
Well, we can just wait for his call then. Do you want to wait for it?
No, this is fine.
Okay.
Uh,
You want to pick off where you were, how, you
yeah, you can edit this, right?
Absolutely, I can. Did you want to get a drink or anything right now, or are you good?
I know my mouth gets really dry.
I just got to get a drink of water too. Yeah. Pour some water. Okay. Well, Sharon, you're doing a terrific job. So I'm just
Oh,
going,
am I?
yeah, you look like a princess too. So Jesus is very proud of you. So he's listening right now, and I'm going to ask you to.
Okay, so my brothers and I had this wonderful family reunion, and they started walking with me. Um, I had Michael on one side and Stephen on the other, and that huge loving presence that was next to me moved from next to me to behind me. And we walked a little bit further into the garden, and there was this, it looked like an old-fashioned movie, like on a reel, and there was a screen that came down, and we were standing there, and I didn't know what that was about. And there was a whole bunch of other people, a whole crowd of other people that came, and they were just loving me. They were supporting me, and um, my brothers actually did tell me that I had died. Um, and when they did, I thought, wow, there's so much love here. I've never been loved like this in my entire life. And if this is death, all this beauty and being in the presence of this, you know, this formless, beautiful presence that I knew was God, I thought, if this is death, I can do this. This is okay. I can do this. So I did look down the front of me to see if I had a body, and I had a body just like everybody else did. And I was glowing just like everyone else, but I was a better version of me. My body was like a light body. That's what I call it. It was not heavy and weighted down with the density that we have here on Earth, the gravity and other things that make us feel very heavy here on Earth. I felt like a feather on the breath of God. It's what I felt like. It was so light and so bright and so beautiful. Um, I could feel the grass on my feet. I looked down the front of me, I could see my hair going down the front of me, I could see my clothes, I could feel my feet in the grass, and it was something that I had loved when I was a child, running through the cool grass on a very warm day, like in the evening when everything had started to cool down and the grass was nice. It smelled sweet, and I'd run through the grass, and that's exactly what it smelled like, fresh cut grass, and it was cool on my feet, and I noticed that. Um, and all these people that had come and gathered around us while this screen had appeared, they all, everyone looked to be, I don't know, between late 20s and early 30s. Even my brothers appeared to be around that age. No one was over early 30s. There were no old people, no one was sick, there were no wheelchairs, crutches, there were no tears. It was all, everybody, they just looked radiantly beautiful and rosy cheeked and healthy and happy, and um but the love and acceptance that I felt from everyone was just out of this world. It was the most amazing thing I've ever felt, because I've never felt that here on this earth. And I noticed that these people looked like they were dressed from different time periods. They knew me and I knew them, but I didn't remember where I knew them from. And the women were dressed in beautiful dresses. The men were dressed in suits, fancy suits. And there were people that were dressed in lounge clothes or clothes like we would wear today, jeans and a shirt or whatever. But it seemed to me that they were wearing whatever made them feel the most comfortable, or could possibly be from whatever time period they were born in. Um, I don't really know. I just know that they were beautiful. The gowns were gorgeous. Um, but so everybody gathered around me, and I just felt so much love and support. And then the movie, this old-fashioned movie started playing on this screen that just came out of nowhere. Um, and it was the story of my life. It was black and white, and it was moving at great speed, really, really fast. It was like a lifetime movie over in 3 minutes. It was just like a blink of an eye and the thing was over. But it was black and white. I could see when I was little. I could see when I was, you know, in kindergarten, 1st grade, high school, young mother growing up. I could see all these different stages and times in my life, but I had no feeling about anything that I saw. It wasn't like, I didn't judge myself. I didn't grab a hold of a particular um, thing that I saw and start judging. Well, I should have done this or I should have done that or whatever. I didn't do that. And I noticed that God didn't judge me. All he did was pour this humongous love, this unconditional love onto me and into me. And I was just like, it was coming out of every pore, like the light that was coming out of everybody. They were glowing and they full of light, but it was the light of God coming from the inside out. And that's how they were glowing. And that's what that love was like. And filled me up. And I thought, wow, that movie was over really quick. And I thought my life must have been pretty boring because it was over really fast. And I thought, okay, something's missing, but I don't know what it is. And I looked at my brothers, and my brothers were just kind of grinning. And I thought, oh, great. They're going to play the brother card here and not tell me. Um, and then it dawned on me that, well, I wasn't being judged. I didn't judge me. G- God didn't judge me. No one else judged me. So there wasn't any judgment. And I learned that we judge ourselves. When we watch our life review, we judge ourselves about whether we're good or bad. And then, God loves us. Has always forgives us, but we're the ones that do the judging. And I didn't do that. And so it was over. And once it was over, um, the next thing that happened is I heard a male voice say, and I knew it was God's voice, but it sounded like God had moved from behind me to like behind a mountain over in front of me. Because there were mountains and valleys and streams and plains and I mean, so many landscapes. So it was absolutely breathtaking. But I heard the voice, and it said, "What you put into the universe will come back to you." And I had not, until that moment, I had not heard words like that. Um, so I wasn't sure what that meant. And then it was like I felt like I was hooked up to a giant IV bottle of knowledge. I was being infused with divine wisdom and divine knowledge. And God was telling me, okay, this is how it all works. And I learned who God is, what God is, you know, he was letting me know how he put the universe together, and you take this and you take this and you put it together, and boom, that's it. And I learned that God is very simple, and we human beings make him so much more complicated than what he really is. And he's not complicated at all. And I was like, when he was letting me know all of these things, and I got answers to questions before I could even get the formulate the words to come out of my mouth to ask the question. And it was I had one aha moment after another. It was just beyond amazing. And the blissful feeling of like, oh, I know the answer to that now. Until I came back, and then I forgot the answer. But at the time, it was absolutely amazing to know the answers to a lot of the questions that we all ask. And I kept telling God, I said, God, you are so awesome. You are an amazing God. You are an awesome God. And you are so simple. And we human beings make everything so complicated. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You are not complicated. And it just blew my mind how amazing he really is. And so after that, um, I learned that what you put into the universe comes back to you. Mean some people want to call it karma. Some people want to call it, whatever they want to call it. But basically, it it's like I call it the boomerang. It's like a boomerang. Because if you put out love, love's going to come back. If you put out hate, hate's going to come back. If you are angry and bitter and you rob and steal and beat people up, well, that's going to come back to you too. But what happens is when you speak, when you think, when you act, it goes out into the universe. It spins, it gains momentum, it gets bigger and faster, and then it comes back like a boomerang and it smacks you when you least expect it, and so when I learned that, I'm like, I am going to be very good. I'm going to watch what I say and try never to hurt anyone because I don't want to be hurt. And I think that that's an awful lot like what, you know, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't want your neighbor stealing from you, then don't steal from your neighbor. That kind of thing. It goes in line with that. Um, so I learned what that was. And then my brothers, that huge loving presence seemed to disappear. And my brothers took me around and gave me a tour of what heaven looked like. So we're walking through the garden, and I could see, as I said earlier, my senses were so heightened. My awareness was so um, alive, so awakened that I could see all the way around without turning my head 360 degrees. I did not have to turn my head to see what was going on back here. And I could see very far distances with great detail. And what I saw were beautiful buildings, um, and this what I call the glorious city. And the glorious city had a golden wall that surrounded it. And inside the city were these magnificent marble buildings, and there were roads and walkways and things like that. But in the center of the city was a big, very large building. It was round and it had a golden dome. And I don't know I didn't go inside that building. So I don't know what that building was, but it was beautiful. It was breathtaking. The whole city was beautiful. The buildings had columns and archways, very intricate etching, um, detailed. There had to have been a master chiseler or whatever you call it to make the detail around the columns and the archways. Um, I saw buildings on the outskirts of the city. Um, I saw this one building that appeared to be a spiritual hospital. And when I say hospital, it was not like a physical hospital where you see people in beds with IVs and things like that. What this was a place where people go who die very quickly, who die traumatically, and they don't have anyone to tell them where they are. I had my brothers, they were there to explain to me what happened and where I was. But there are some people in the world that don't have that, or they need extra, they've been in a huge fire or an explosion or something, and they need that extra support. So there are teachers and mentors and and uh, guidance, angels, people specifically trained to help these people come gently to the awareness of where they are, what has happened, and you're okay. You're okay. We've got you. You're okay. We're going to teach you what you need to know, and you're going to be fine. So I learned that heaven was a very gentle place. You're not just thrown in there and, okay, if you want to walk, you think about it and you fly or whatever. It's not like that. It's very gentle. You're taught because you're in a new place. You're no longer in this physical world. So one of the things that I learned was that we are not our physical bodies. Although everyone I saw there had what appeared to be a physical body, but I am not my body. There is a part of me. Are you The phone is ringing. Are you still there?
Yep,
Hello?
still here.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
oh, yeah, I can. Did you know the phone was ringing? Could you tell?
There was no phone ringing.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, I didn't hear a phone ring, Sharon.
Oh, the whole phone twisted.
Ah!
It was ringing, and I thought, "Oh my god, is it her phone ringing or my phone?"
Do you want to take a little break or do you want to keep going?
No, I can keep going.
Okay, I'll just keep.
Am I doing all right?
You are, you look like an angel. I couldn't imagine it being any better. Like it's the best one I've ever seen of you. That's my view. So I'm gonna like repurpose it in multiple ways if I can, if you're whatever you approve.
Yeah,
I'm
take
gonna
like
get everything.
100 pounds off me.
You look beautiful. You just look wonderful. Like you look like an angel. Like you literally look like an angel. Okay, so here I'm gonna turn this off and you can start anytime. Thank
So everyone was just absolutely beautiful. Um, but I learned that we are not our bodies. There is a very special part of us that makes us who we are. And that is eternal. That goes on. And that is what, when we die, we take with us that soul, that spirit, that thing that makes us who we are, that precious, beautiful thing that gives us our individuality. Um, I still looked like me, only better. I thought like me. I felt like me. I still had my identity. My identity seemed important that I had this. It's not like I just dissolved into nothing. Although that love that I felt from God, I wanted to just become one with God, one with, and I learned that we are one with God. We are one with each other. We are all connected. Everything is connected, and we are all interdependent upon each other. And what happens to one happens to all. And that is very important. And yet, your identity is important. God made you who you are. He made your identity. He made you that special person that you are. But you are not this vessel that is carrying that special part of you while you're on this earth. It's kind of like having like when you have a car and that car is taking your body from one place to another, to the grocery store, to church, to school, to whatever. It takes you from one place to another while you're here. Cars break down, cars have to be replaced, cars, you know, they die, they get old and they die. But that doesn't mean that, when your body fails, as everybody's will, you do not. You stay who you are. That special part of you will not die. And I found death to be very flawless, very seamless. It was like I was walking from one room in this house to another. It was that quick. It it was I'm still me, but I'm not in the living room anymore. I'm in the kitchen. So it was just moving from one place to another is all it was. And there wasn't any pain. It was amazing. The love and the acceptance and just beyond. I There's just no words to describe how beautiful it was. So that's what that spiritual hospital was about. It's letting people know, because when you're in heaven, it's more about spiritual growth than it is here on earth. Our schooling is more science and math based, but in heaven, it's spiritual based, and it's all about our soul's growth. That's what it's all about. And so I saw schools there. I saw what would be equivalent to colleges, but these were spiritual schools where they, like, hands-on teaching, mentors and teachers and guides and angels and you know it, people had jobs in heaven. I noticed there was a place I saw where babies and children go, and when a baby dies as a baby, it stays a baby, and it continues to grow up until it gets to a certain age. 20s, 30s, everybody was that age. So if you're a very old person and you die, you go back down to the 20s or 30s. When you're a baby or a young child, you will grow with the help of, your great grandma, your great aunts, your brothers and sisters, or whoever has passed before you. They'll be there to love you and support you, but you'll grow from a young child up to 20s or 30s. And so everybody stays about that age. And the place where the babies and children go, it was huge, absolutely huge. And it looked a huge playground. I call it Toys R Us on steroids. I mean, they had everything they could possibly have. And they were being played with, and they were running around laughing, and they were not sick. They were not in pain. They were not hurting. And they were being loved and nurtured and cared for. Um, I saw animals. So our beloved animals, they go to heaven. They're there. Horses and cows and chickens and dogs and cats and whatever. Um, there's rolling plains and valleys and hills and streams and trees galore for the birds and whatever. I mean, I didn't see anything that would indicate, you know, sadness or illness or anything. Nobody was sick. I did see a place that I call the Hall of Knowledge, but I'm not sure if that's actually what it's called. I just call it that. It looked like a gigantic library. It was humongous, and it was absolutely breathtaking. Everything was made out of this beautiful, rich mahogany wood. The shelves were wood. There was ladders that would move around the room, and they were wooden. They were chandeliers. The tables and chairs for people to sit, and but it was such a huge room that the ladders had to be 10 feet tall because there were so many books, or what looked like books, these beautiful antique books, and on every possible subject you could possibly want to know. If you wanted to learn something, you would go right into that room and grab a book. Um, there were, oh my goodness, I learned that if there was something that you wanted to experience that you didn't experience here, you could experience it there. If you'd always wanted to be on a wooden ship with sails, you could go do that. If you wanted to live on the beach in a beach house and run up and down on the beach and play volleyball and cook fish on a fire, open fire on the beach, you could do that. Just whatever it is that you wanted to do. Work on old cars in an old dirty garage. If it doesn't go against the will of God, it's no, there's no reason why you can't enjoy doing the things that you wanted to do that you may never have gotten to do. And there are a lot of things I didn't get to do that I wanted to do, but I didn't get to stay. so, um, so I saw all of these buildings, and as I was walking around, there was another building that my brothers took me to. It was looked like it was a magnificent party that was going on. Um, everybody was dressed up. I mean, really, really dressed up. Beautiful dresses, beautiful jewelry, flowers, huge, huge baskets of flowers on the table that matched the colors of the dresses. Um, I saw men in suits, and there was a man in the corner of this room. It was a huge room. I didn't go into the room. I stood in the doorway with my brothers, and I looked in to see what was going on. And it was so joyous, and it was so beautiful. The huge chandeliers. I mean, probably bigger than my this room that I'm sitting in. The chandelier alone. Over in the corner, there was a man. He had tails. He was wearing a coat with tails, and he was sitting on a bench, and he was playing this beautiful, gigantic piano. And on top of the piano, there was a candelabra and a vase, a crystal vase with red roses spilling out of the vase and onto the piano. So he was playing it's beautiful music. Um, um, some of the people were talking and laughing together, and some of the people were singing along to the music, and some of the people were dancing together. And then I looked on the other side, and there were of the room, and there were these tables that were covered in white linens and silver trays. And on the silver trays were rolls and breads and pastries and fruits and vegetables and cheeses and just, I mean, anything that you could want. It was there for people to eat. And I learned that you could eat not because you have to eat to sustain your life. You eat because it brings you joy. And then you stop and think about it that when you're here on earth, most of the time, like Christmas, holidays, whatever, you get together with family and friends and you're having a good time. It's usually centered around food. And so that's what was going on there. It was a party of some kind. I don't know who the party was for, but I wanted to go in and have and enjoy the party. It was so beautiful. It really was. Um, so we walked around some more and I looked at the flowers and the landscaping and I noticed there were two houses that I saw and they were literal homes, houses. One of them looked like it was sitting on a hillside or a bluff, and just below where the house was, there were rocks, and the ocean waves were coming up and and washing up onto the rocks. And then behind that house, there was another house. It kind of looked like an English cottage, and there were beautiful rose gardens behind the house. There was like a wall that went around, and like they had a courtyard of some sort in their backyard. And it was just beautiful. So I realized that there are homes people and the homes are very individual, like the people are very individual. Um and as I mentioned before, it seemed like there were jobs that people were doing, whether they were welcoming people, getting people, like my brothers were doing, taking me on a tour, showing me all around. Um, there were mentors and teachers and guides. There were people who were doing loving things for other people, but they were doing it also because you know God asked them to do it. And it's what they wanted to do. The ones that were taking care of the babies and the ones that were running after the little kids and the ones that were working and consoling the people that had just passed on in a very traumatic way. So there were different different things that people can do. So I realized we don't just sit on clouds eating chocolate and playing harps. There's really, it's an active place. It's very busy and very active. Um excuse me, I need to drink. I'm sorry. Are you there?
Yes, I certainly am. Do you want to have a little break right now? Or you want to keep going? Or
That's up
what
to you, honey.
or do you want to continue tomorrow? Or I'm okay with everything. Like I could go like for I don't have all the hard work of doing all the talking though, but I could go another like 2 hours or whatever you need.
Oh,
So,
I can go on a little bit.
yeah. Do you want, are you
It's just
sure?
my throat gets real dry.
Yeah. Do you want to continue maybe after you want to end at this NDE and then continue maybe next week? Oh, you're in surgery next week, right?
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's only one day.
So do you so
So I'll end this one, and then we can talk about the other two and then whatever else.
when would you like to talk about the other two? And I Sharon, can you use that same background and that same dress and same hairstyle? Because
Oh,
it's
yes.
so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. Thank you. And here we go. Okay.
S- So the next part is as we're walking through, my brothers and I are walking through and the garden, and I'm looking at all these buildings and all these beautiful people, and I'm learning all these wonderful things. I s- see this grove of trees over in the corner next to the golden wall that surrounds the city. And there's a man that's walking out of the grove of trees, and it's Jesus. Now, I've had many people ask me what kind of trees were those, and I have no idea. A tree is a tree to me. But he was walking out of the grove of trees and he walked over to me. And when he did that, my brothers kind of disappeared. And I'm not sure where they went, but Jesus was the most magnificent, most beautiful. mm, I mean, he was so beautiful. I was just like, you know, I didn't know what to say. Um, and he smiled at me and he said, I love you. Don't be afraid. I'm with you. And it didn't dawn on me at the time that I was going to be sent back. And that was his way of saying, you're going to go back. And it just kind of went right over my head. I didn't pick up on it at all. I just kept staring at him. He was magnificently beautiful. Um, he had the longer hair. He had dark olive complexion, beautiful brown eyes. He was about 5'11", slim built, but muscular. He was wearing a ivory colored robe, um, but he was glowing. It was like he had been out in the sun all day long. You could see the highlights in his. He had very dark hair, and it was long, but you could see highlights in his hair. You could see the tan. He looked like he had a tan on top of his dark skin. And he was just, I mean, his smile just was enough to melt you. And the love that came out of him was just enormous, enormous. So, anyway, he walks me over to this beautiful wooded glen. And I'm looking at this glen and I could see the sunbeams coming through the the tops of these huge tall trees. I could see the pine needles and pine cones on the ground, and these real pretty little blue flowers were popping up through the pine needles. And there was a log that was laying on the ground. And I love moss. I think moss is so pretty as it's growing over the rocks and whatever. And there was moss on the tree. And so I sit down on the tree that's laying on the ground. And when I do that, Jesus walks away. And there's a man sitting on the other end of the log. And I looked over and I noticed that that was God that was sitting on the other end of the log. He looked different than Jesus did. Their mannerisms were so much the same, but they were different. Like God was an older version of Jesus or something. Um, and anyway, he had the curlier hair. It was also dark, but it was curly and it was short to about right here. And he had a beard, and he had real crystal blue eyes. Um, he looked at me and he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I was like, "What? What do you I don't know what you mean. What does that mean?" Because I didn't know it was another one of those moments where it just went right over my head. And I couldn't understand what he was wanting from me. And he just looked at me and he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I said, I still don't understand what you're saying to me. And he said, "Well, come with me." So we got up and we walked further into the wooded glen, and there was this clearing. And so he kind of waves his hand like this. And when he does, the sky opens up. And I could see the vastness of the universe. I saw the spinning planets and the sparkling stars and the rainbow colored gases. And it was just huge. It was so big. And yet there were no trees, no cars, no people, no houses, no animals, nothing. It was just that stuff and nothing else. And I looked at God and I said, "God, if it's all of that and just me and you, you'd be tired of me after the first 10 minutes and you wouldn't like me anymore." And he threw his head back and he started laughing. And when he did, his eyes were just twinkly. And I realized what I had said. I thought, "Oh my gosh, that was the dumbest thing. That was so dumb." And who tells God no? So I started laughing. When he started laughing, his laugh was so infectious that I started laughing. And then so we went back and we sat back on the log. And he said to me again, he said, "Now, what would you do if it was just me and you? No mom and dad, no children, no husband, no friends, you know, no guides, no angels, no no puppies, just me and you." Um, and I knew at that point what he was talking about, but I didn't know how to answer him in a um, logical, um, grown up. um, I, um, I don't even know what the words would be. Um, I just didn't know how to answer him. And so I was looking at this beautiful, beautiful tree that was in front of me. It was ancient, the ancient of ancient trees. And I noticed the detail of the bark. And I noticed the roots beneath the ground and how they were pulling the nutrients out of the soil. I could see it going up through the roots and into the trunk and up into the branches and then into the leaves, and then the leaves do what the leaves do, and the leaves clean the air and we breathe the air. And so I could see how the interconnectedness of everything, and that is exactly how God designed it to be. And I said to him, I said, "God, your 100th name is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me." He said, "Yes, that's right." And then I looked at the tree and I said, "You made this tree. You are in this tree. So when I see this tree, I see you." He said, "Yes, that's right." And then I started thinking further, and I know that he was putting these thoughts into my head. And I could s- I started thinking about my mom and my dad. And I said, God, you made my parents. You are." in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you." And he said, "Yes, that's right." And well, so I went a little bit further and I said the same thing about my children. And he said, "Yes, that's right." And then I said, "God, there are people in this world that hurt other people. And I don't really like those people, but you made them, you are in them. So when I see them, I see you." And he said, "That's right." Well, then he said, "I have a question for you." I said, "Okay." He said, "When you look in the mirror, what do you see?" Well, my first answer would have been not much, just me. But that didn't seem like the right kind of answer that you give to God, the creator of everything that ever existed. So I said, um, when I look in the mirror, I mean, you made me, you're in me. When I look in the mirror, I see you. And he said, "Yes, that's right." Well, he said that because I had spent a lifetime of people telling me, "You're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're all these things." And that was the world view of me. And I started buying into it and believing it. And God was telling me, and he told me, "I don't make mistakes. I don't make junk, and you are not all of those things that the world is telling you that you are. You are what I tell you you are. And I made you. You have a purpose. Is a reason for you to be here. And it's not for you to be listening to them, because their opinion isn't what matters. My opinion is what matters." And I needed to hear that because I was really in a bad way at that time, believing, that I was put here for other people to use up, for other people to call names, for other people to tell me I was ugly and stupid and take their issues out on me. And God was like, no, that that's not it at all." So then after, I mean, that was huge. That was a huge, huge shift and change in my heart and in my spirit. I'm not, it just blew my mind that would tell me that he loved me that much, that I had a reason, I had a purpose to be here, just like everybody else does. We're all special. We're all unique. We all have a reason to be here, or we wouldn't be here. Um, he did say to me that in the grand scheme of all that is, human beings are tiny. We're small in comparison to the gigantic mountains that he's made, the universes, the planets, and all of that kind of thing. But yet, we are intricately important to everything that he created. And if we were not here, his creation changes and becomes something different. That's how important we are to him. And I don't remember having a conversation about being sent back other than knowing that I was going to be coming back. And it probably wasn't a good one. That's why I don't remember it. So I was sent back to my body. And that is the second experience.
Thanks, Sharon. Do you want to answer one quick question before
Okay.
we call it off? Just What is unconditional? This is philosophical. What is unconditional love in heaven? And what does it mean here?
When I say that I felt that unconditional love, I didn't have to do anything for it. It was given freely. Um, it was a gift. It I felt unconditional love by every single being that I encountered in heaven, especially God, especially Jesus. But I didn't have to ask for it. I didn't have to do something for it. Um, it wasn't like, if you act like this, I'll love you. If you say these words, I'll love you. If you look like this and be my Barbie doll, I'll love you. It wasn't that kind of thing. It was, I love you no matter what you look like, no matter what you say, no matter what you wear, no matter what you do. I am going to love you for every single bit of you for the eternity, and you don't have to do a thing to get it. I just love you. I just love you because I can love you, period. And it's a totally different feeling. That kind of love is so huge. And it is a gift. It's a gift of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's enormous. And I know that there are people, and I even mentioned it. There were people in this world that I don't care for because they hurt other people, and I don't like that. But that doesn't mean I don't love them. If they needed me, if something were to happen and they needed me, I would do, you know, what I could to help them. Um, and there comes a time here on earth where we can really love someone, but maybe have to love from a distance because the love has become toxic or it's not healthy. But that's different than unconditional love. Or maybe it isn't. I don't know. Unconditional loving is, I love you unconditionally. Now, whether I can live with you or not, something different, or whether I can tolerate that behavior is something different. That doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I can't, you know, you might have to live across the street and do your behavior over there because I can't deal with it. Or, but in heaven, I think God's unconditional love changes everyone. There it's a healing, comforting, absolutely beautiful, and it's a gift. It's an absolute gift, freely given, and you don't have to do anything to earn it. I mean, his hand is always out. Here's my hand. All you got to do is take it. And that's what his unconditional love is. And we as humans, we try to strive for that, to be like that. And we find it very difficult. Because, like I said, there are certain behaviors we can live with and certain ones we can't. But that doesn't mean that we can't be kind.
Very nice, Sharon. Very, Beautiful. I love it. It was wonderful. And I'm gonna
Are you sure? Because I felt like I couldn't answer that question.
no, but you did and there's I'm taking the best sound bites of what you say, and you answered it beautifully. Like mm, I'm gonna take the sound bites of what it was like in heaven, and those are the ones I'm going to put forth. And the ones about how it is on earth, we're all struggling with that, aren't we? Like how to come. Can I ask you one last question about that? And then that's it, I promise.
Yes.
Okay, so if if heaven is unconditional love, and our goal here, according to some, psychics such as yourself, is to bring this world to a place of higher vibrational frequency, do you think we need to all get to that place of unconditional love, or what is your view? But I'm just going to mute me right now. You could just say anything along that line you want to say.
I think that it is our goal to love like God loves, to love like Christ loved. I think that if we come here on earth, sorry, we come here to earth um, for it's within the human experience that the soul does the most growing. And I think the more our soul grows, the more we learn how to love. I mean, because that's one of the reasons we come here is to learn to love and be loved. And um, I think that it takes learning. It takes loving, like being a child, learning how to walk. We walk, we fall down, and our loving Father picks us up and dusts the dirt off our diaper, and we start walking some more. And we fall down. We skin up our knee, and our loving Father wipes the blood off of our knee. And we get back up and we walk some more. And the more we get up and walk, you know, the more we fall down and we get back up. We know He's there. We're not alone, but life hurts. Life is painful. And it's through that pain that we grow. Because if everything was, perfect and wonderful, we wouldn't learn anything. We wouldn't be growing. It's the growing pains that of living that hurt so bad. But we learn and we grow through that. And that's how we learn to love and be loved. And I think unselfishness, there's a lot. Loving unconditionally means not being selfish. It means loving regardless, doing for others regardless. Doesn't matter what they look like, how much money they make, if they live in a house or if they live in a cardboard box. It does not matter. They are human beings. God loves them. He made them. He's in them. And, you know, um, I can give you an example. There were when where I used to live, we have a lot of homeless people that live in this area, and there are a lot of people that walk the streets late at night. They don't have any place to go. There are people that are on drugs and that kind of thing. And I used to have trouble sleeping at night. And I would sit outside for hours on my porch, and people would walk by, and it would be absolutely incredible the number of people that would come up to me while I'm sitting on my porch and ask me for water, and I would go in and I'd get them 2 or 3 bottles of water. Or they would ask me for crackers or something to eat, and I would go in and I'd get them as much as could get. Or they wanted cigarettes, or they wanted, whatever it was they wanted. And one time there was a lady that came, and I knew she was on drugs. I wasn't afraid of her at all, but she was so exhausted. She needed a place to sit down and someone just to listen to her. And so I told her, I said, please come sit on my porch. I'm gonna go get you some water, and I'll get you a pack of cigarettes and a blanket, and you just cover up here and just sit up here, and I'll talk to you. I couldn't understand a word she said, and she talked nonstop for 2.5 hours. But I shook my head. Mm-hmm. Yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh. I understand. And finally, about 2.5 later, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I told her I was tired and I needed to go in. But all she needed was someone to hear her, just to sit with her and listen to her. She was so tired of walking the streets. And when she got up, she said, well, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. And it was just that little bit of exchange right there that brought me more joy than I'm sure it brought her. And what that's what unconditional love does. When you extend yourself with unconditional love, the reward is not a physical reward. It is a reward of the heart, of the soul, and it will bring you joy, knowing that you have helped someone else with not expecting anything in return. Just just doing it because you can.
It brought tears to my eyes. I cried.
Oh.
It was so beautiful. Well, I'm gonna stop recording now, and